I use CO2 cartridges to reinflate tyres in the event of a puncture out on the road. I recently had a run of a few punctures and ended up with only one spare cartridge left, so I needed to buy some more. Online these are typically about £12 for 10 cartridges. The cartridges for a tyre inflator need to be threaded, and these are typically the 16 gram size. On my road bike, this size cartridge will normally just about do 2 tyres, which means I'm normally left with half a full cartridge after repair. This would be okay if the pump head didn't leak slowly, meaning that next time I came to use it, I had to fit another brand new cartridge, which all in all made it quite expensive unless you have a puncture every other day. So I decided that I would look at one of the new electric battery-powered pumps that are now becoming more affordable before I committed to some more cartridges. The one I was looking at was the Airbank SE, and this was on everybody's favourite website for around £40. I had this sitting in my basket for some time, but for the first time I gave in and looked at AliExpress. The same item was listed at half the price and also still with free postage, so I thought I'd give AliExpress a go. Once I'd signed up, it was even cheaper for some reason. I think because I was a new customer and got some sort of first time discount, and it came in at a little under £16 delivered. I'm really reluctant about buying direct from China as it takes jobs from the UK, but at this price difference it's really hard not to. The item I was buying was identical to the one I would have bought if I bought it in the UK. It's just that I was buying it direct from China. And like all good reviews, we have to start first with the unboxing. It took a week to get from China to my house and would have arrived on the specified date if we'd been in to receive it. It was well packaged and there was no sign of any damage during transit. I used the AliExpress recommended shipping method and I didn't get charged any custom duties or any other costs. Once out of the bag, the box gave an impression of being well made. It was custom packaging and not a generic plain brown box. In the box was the pump itself in a small white plastic bag to protect it. There was also another small bag with a USB cable to charge it and an adapter to use Schrader valves instead of the Presta valves that it was already configured with. The unit itself gave the initial and first impression of being very well made, with pretty high quality plastic, quality printing on the unit and some sort of stuck on safety label. Next to the valve adapter there's the USB charging port and the on-off button with an indication LED. The last two things in the box was a plastic bag to keep it in whilst out riding and also an instruction manual. The instruction manual itself was pretty clear. English was the first set of instructions in the book and there are 3 pages of instructions per language. I turned the pump on just to see how noisy it was. People have said that they are very noisy. Obviously running free, there's no load on it, but I didn't think it was that bad. So an important thing is, how heavy is it? Mine weighed in at 95 grams versus 93 as specified in the manual. What I carry on the road with the CO2 cartridges was 150 grams. The acid test, of course, is how well it inflates the tyres. I don't have a pressure gauge for bicycles, so the method I used to see how much pressure the pump could deliver was to pump the tyre, then connect my track pump and try manually inflate the tyre and capture the point where that gauge starts to move. In this way, I've got a rough and ready idea about how many psi were already in the tyre. Admittedly, not a very good process, but good enough for a simple assessment. So this is the very first time I've used the pump. It sits nicely self-supporting itself on the valve stem. Started the pump with a double press. It's certainly not as noisy as I thought it would be, and I left it running using the squeezing the tyre method to decide how much pressure it may have achieved. It felt okay after what I later timed as 45 seconds. I've now moved the tyre down onto the floor to try my scientific pump method to see how much pressure I got in the tyre. And in this case, I estimated that it was just over 60 psi. The pump claims it can get tyres up to 100 psi. Given the tyre I'm using is a quite narrow 25mm 700C tyre, I thought I'd give it a go and see how high it could get it by leaving it running for much longer, and actually see if it can get 100 psi in this tyre. I let all the air out and refitted the pump, and this time I've just left it running until I thought it would reach the maximum. Certainly after more running time, you could hear the pump was under much more load as it was making a different noise, and the squeeze test showed that it had got much more pressure in the tyre as well. This time the pump had run for twice as long as the first time. Rerunning my very scientific pressure measurement test, this time I measured the tyre pressure at about 80 psi. So it took twice as long to get another 20 psi into the tyre. There is no doubt that 80 psi is more than good enough for a road bike, and certainly enough to get you home. I wanted to see how many times the pump could inflate a tyre of this size. I deflated the tyre again and refitted the pump. This time I just left it running and the battery ran out after 45 seconds on this third run. I didn't record it, but I did check the tyre pressure again and it was 60 psi. To summarise the data, the pump made 3 runs with a total runtime of just under 3 minutes. At 45-second duration, the tyre pressure was about 60 to 65 psi, and if you want to get up to 80 psi, then you need to run it for about a minute and a half. It seems unlikely that you'll get much more than 80 psi. 65 psi would certainly get you home, and that would mean that the pump could easily do 3 tyres with a little to spare. If you want to run to 80 psi, the best assumption would be to plan for 2 tyres. I think on my gravel bike with 45mm tyres, I would only get 1 decent inflation out of this pump, and similarly on my mountain bike. This does tie up loosely with the specifications given in the sales material, but I think that you should always err on the side of caution. So just a quick summary of what I think about it so far. In some ways it's better than a CO2 solution, as it's certainly 2/3 of the weight compared to what I normally carry, and that is an advantage. It should give me 2 to 3 tyres worth of reliable inflation, which would more than easily get me home with 2 punctures. Some things to consider is it doesn't get to the 100 psi advertised, and I really don't think it would, in all honesty. I think for wider gravel and mountain bike tyres it may just about make 1 inflation, but I haven't tested this yet. You need to remember to keep it charged, and you don't know how good the battery may be in a year's time. In terms of long-term reliability, I really have no idea about that at all, and I think that when buying something at this price point from AliExpress, the assumption is that there is no warranty. However, despite all of that, I'm pretty impressed with it so far, but I haven't had to use it on the road, and I'll find out if it lets me down the first time I try and use it. Thank you for watching.